Cousin falsely accused me of SA. Now my family is contacting me after almost 10 years part 2. So it's been around 3 months since I last posted the previous post and a decent amount has happened. Some for the better and some for the worse. For one, E is still a huge a-hole. Around a week after my family sent me the messages, she also reached out with a huge apology text. When I received it, I couldn't believe my eyes. She was talking about how she had mental problems and has been dealing with them for ages, almost as an excuse as to why she did this to me. She said she needed help and her parents were helping her get it. This seemed like BS to me because all my life I knew E. She was a beaming, radiant girl, until that dreadful day in 2014. The whole text felt like she was just feeding me excuses to why it happened, and then ending it off with the shortest actual apology. My original plan was to go on with my life and try to slowly make it better and better, but seeing this pushed me to my limit. I had to respond, and tear into her with the most vile words I could think of. In the end, the actual text I ended up sending said, "You think your mental problems are bad? Try being torn away and excommunicated from your whole family for 10 years when you were just in the infant years of your adult life, and see how bad those mental problems become. I am still trying to deal with all of this and the last thing I need is the culprit of my misery feeding me excuses as to why it happened. My other relatives may have been in the dark the whole time, but you knew the entire time, and it never dawned on you to say things sooner? You're lucky I didn't unalive myself at this point. My parents and sibling might be another story, but I will never be able to forgive you for the irreversible damage you have done to me and my relationships. Please, rot in hell and never contact me again." She hasn't responded, but I can see that she got the message because of read receipts. Maybe she took the hint to not respond. The good news is that I also responded to my parents. Nothing crazy in text because we really got the whole conversation out over the phone. It felt weird hearing their voices again. I used to relate those voices to being safe and home, but after what happened it was a whole new feeling. At first, I hated it. All the sour memories popped back into my brain from the day I last spoke to them. Those voices had been screaming at me for things I didn't even do. The conversation lasted about 3 to 4 hours, and while it was hard for me and most likely them, it was the most productive conversation I've ever had with them. I thought it would be a lot of excuses just like E, but to my surprise, they not only apologized a million times over, but told me everything they were in the wrong about. They said it was weighing on them all these years and now that the truth is out they don't know how they can live with themselves. The one really hard part was when I asked them why they didn't hear me out or believe their own son compared to a niece. They told me they struggled with it immensely but E had made it so believable that they felt they had no choice. I told them that instead of just cutting contact, they should have at least tried to get me help, but they gave me nothing to work with. They said they knew this and that was the hardest part. After the first year or two, they said they wanted to contact me and try to figure things out, but they ultimately decided that me being who I was would not talk to them and things would just get worse. That got me heated a little bit because who cares what type of person I am? What I really am is your son and that comes first. At the end we came to the conclusion that we will stay in contact. I am not going over to visit them or anything but it's a start. While there is still so much hatred in my heart for them, I feel like things can get better, and that's why I'm somewhat happy. Since that phone call, we frequently check up on each other, and conversations are slowly getting back to what they used to be. Maybe I'll visit them someday, but I don't know when that will be or how it will go. How am I supposed to hug and say hi to the people who threw me out of their life? Cousin falsely accused me of SA. Now my family is contacting me after almost 10 years. Final part. Hey guys, so I have another update on my whole situation regarding E and the SA. It has been another 4 to 5 months since the last update and I have some better news than worse this time again. To start off, a lot of people were telling me to sue or take E to court. While I agree that what she did was unforgivable and heinous, I don't feel like that will cause any good. The situation has been 10 years in the making and I kind of just want to be all over and done with it. Taking her to court would cost me thousands in legal fees that I just can't afford, and I also can't help but think of the fact that he never took it to court either. I know that's not a good excuse but it's just a thought. I am still in contact with my parents and you won't believe it but I actually visited them around a week ago. They also have removed contact with E, and I feel like her getting the same treatment I went through is similar to being sued in terms of punishment. Believe me I would know. Visiting the parents went well. I haven't seen the rest of my family as I want the process to be gradual, but we met and had a nice dinner, of course. In my last post I said I didn't know how the greeting process would go. How was I supposed to greet the people who tore my normal life away? Well, the greeting went better than I imagined. I thought hate would win over me but I actually felt somewhat relieved when I saw them. Is that weird? Maybe it was the fact that seeing them meant maybe my life was getting back to the normal it was before, but I don't know. I didn't hug them until after because the conversation we had was pretty grueling. I didn't mean to rip into them but I felt I had to really get the point across of how much hurt they had caused me. At some point my mother cried, because of the detail I went into about my darkest times. They said they know they can't do anything to fix what has happened but want the future to be optimistic. They even opened the idea of coming home for Christmas and seeing the rest of the family, but I told them my plan about taking it slow and said I might be open to the idea. While I am still conflicted, that feeling of hatred is slowly going away and I am overall just feeling like a better person in general. I think the weight of the situation had pulled me down all those 10 years and now that I am free of judgment it feels good. I have also started dating now, and met a great girl that I am starting to slowly get serious with. Life is getting better. Who knows what will happen in the next 10 years after this but for the first time in ages I feel like things are going up. For all those reading, please use my story as an aid to your personal problems and grudges. Things do get better, even if you have to wait 10 years. I don't love my disabled wife, and I resent that I have to care for her, but I will probably never leave her. She was my high school sweetheart. The love of my life. My soulmate. Then, she had her injury. One day we were at my parents' house and chilling by the pool. She was always happy and this day was no exception. I was sitting in a chair close to the pool and told her to come over to me. She did her awkward little run over to me but was too close to the pool and slipped. She immediately hit her head and blood was spilling everywhere. It was the back of her head too, which didn't make it any better. She seemed okay at first, but now I can probably reduce that to being in shock. After about 1 minute she fainted and wasn't waking up. I called the police immediately and she was rushed to the hospital immediately. Sadly, she fell into a coma due to severe trauma to the head, and I had no idea whether she would ever wake up again. When she did, she was severely disabled, and she was a different person. I hoped her old personality would come back with time and therapy, but it's been 5 years since she woke up, and I think this is just what she's like now. She's not a bad person, she's just not the woman I fell in love with. Parts about her personality that I cherished just disappeared. Her little quirks here and there that would make me smile while watching her, all gone. I have to feed her because she can't use her hands very well, and have to roll her around on a wheelchair everywhere we go. I miss the adventures we used to go on. It felt like it was us against the world, and now it feels like me against it alone. I know I'm expected to be grateful that I got my wife back, but the truth is my wife died the day she was injured. I hoped I would be able to fall in love with this new person, but you can't just force yourself to fall in love with someone. So I resent her. I know it isn't her fault, it's not fair that I feel this way towards her, but I resent this new woman for taking my wife away, and for the fact that I have to take care of her. I also have realized that she has caught on to my feelings in some sense. More recently now she asks me if I'm doing alright, and I just fake a smile and say I am, when in truth, I am hurting. I know I can never tell her because that would destroy her, and I can't do that to someone I love that much. I can't leave her. She has no one else to care for her. And she still has my wife's voice, her laugh, her smile. I couldn't bear to lose those, they're all I have left of the woman I love. So I pretend. I pretend I don't notice that she's a completely new person, I pretend I still love her, I pretend I don't resent her. I care for her. I've accepted that this is my life now. Husband said his friends cheated on their wives during group trip. Did he also cheat? Like the title says. My husband went on a trip with a group of men. Many of these are friends of a mutual friend on the trip. He knew 3 of the guys beforehand and met the rest on the trip. They went to a place known for sex tourism. Well, it's about halfway into the trip and my husband FaceTimes me telling me all the dirty and grotesque things happening on it. The problem is that he didn't seem uncomfortable. He told me almost like it was no big deal, when in reality it definitely is a big deal. Most of the men are married with kids and one has a long-term girlfriend. Of the group of men, my husband said he and one other guy were the only ones who didn't take up the offer of hookers from their tour and security guy. That term is used loosely as he was also the guy offering them party favors and women. I find it hard to believe that out of everything going on over there, he and only one other guy didn't partake. I love my husband very much, and I want to trust him, but maybe he was saying this to try and hide anything he did? My husband told me this on the condition that he does not want something to come out later and he will be implicated by association. He felt that I should know what was happening on this trip and he can't risk our relationship. He also said I cannot inform any of the wives and they would know it was him who broke the bro code. That makes me even more suspicious at the fact that he was also doing it. If no one wanted the information getting out, then why would he tell me? The only reason I could think of is to get on my good side if the information came out later. They all seemed so comfortable cheating on their spouses and he said it didn't seem like it was their first time. Someone we know very closely and wouldn't imagine doing something like this also participated, which doesn't help my husband's situation. I am so conflicted and hurt by these people. I will be seeing these wives and girlfriend at events and some of them frequently, how can I not tell them? I feel as a woman, I would want to be informed. However, my husband said it is not our business as to what their marriages are like. He told me that there is no way their wives don't have an inkling, but does he really think I don't have one about him? Before he went to this destination, we looked it up and I mentioned to my husband that because this is what people go there to do, I'm slightly uncomfortable and his assurance was that he would openly communicate with me and let me know everything that happened. Which he did. I just don't know how to respect these people and continue being friends with them as well as not spilling the beans. If I am cold with them or don't interact with them, they will know something is up as I'm usually bubbly and outgoing. Well, as expected, we go to one of these events where all the wives and girlfriend will be, and the whole time I feel so out of place just because of the information I knew. Then, the girlfriend tells me something that made me really question my husband. She brought up the trip, and said how lovely it was that my husband came up with the idea to go to that location, and how much fun they had. This made my thoughts spiral out of control. Could all these allegations that I made up about my husband in my mind actually be true? Why would he suggest out of all people to go to a place that is known for this type of stuff? It has truly taken over any other thought in my brain. After she said that I told her I had to excuse myself and just went to the bathroom and sobbed. It is later in the night and I am currently writing this in bed as he falls asleep next to me. How do I confront him about this? I feel as though with me bringing it up, all he would have to do is say the girlfriend is lying, and how am I supposed to refute that? I don't have any evidence against my claims, and he did everything I asked him to do on that trip. Have open communication, and keep in contact, both of which he did, or did he? I live a double life with my wife, and I couldn't be happier. I met my wife when we were both in high school. We grew up in the South, so me being gay wasn't exactly an option at the time. We started dating because it was a good cover for me, and she had a thing for me. I've never had much of a sex drive. I used to assume it was the pent-up gay, but knowing the terms now, I'm probably on the A spectrum. I definitely like men, but even with the hottest guys I only ever wanted it once or twice a month. I came out about 15 years ago, just to her. She was heartbroken, but very accepting. She asked me to still date her until I found a boyfriend, and I agreed because I did really value her as a close friend. To this day, I still have not come out to anybody. We both agreed we would keep living together, go out together with friends, the usual, but obviously would start actively seeing other people. I met a few guys, but none that I really wanted to hold down, and she was happy enough coming home to me after whatever escapades she got up to. I would always have to act like the gay roommate when she would bring guys over, which made it really awkward for me as I have never really acted gay before. Then she got pregnant. Everyone assumed I was the father, and all I've ever wanted was to be a stay-at-home dad. I sat her down and told her that if she wanted, I'd marry her if she was the breadwinner. I'd take care of the baby, the house, all that stuff, if she supported us. I explained that I would want the same arrangement we had now, but that this way she could count on having childcare, and I would have the life I've always wanted. She agreed, and we got married in August 2011. I found the situation that I was in odd because the only person that would ever know I was gay was my wife for the sake of her and her happiness. Our daughter was born January of 2012. Life was exactly what I wanted and expected. We didn't have tons of money, but we got by fine. About 5 years ago, we got drunk, and slept together. For the first time in our relationship, we were actually physical. I woke up the next morning and was shocked at how much I didn't regret it. It was definitely not something I would have done sober, but it made her so happy it just made me happy. It was fine. Ultimately, it wasn't some horrid, gross thing. I wasn't into it, but it really made her happy, and that made me happy. She asked me about it, and I told her the truth. I am gay, I am not attracted to her, but I do love her. If a physical relationship would make her that happy, I could do that. After all, how many women are with men they aren't attracted to? When the pandemic hit, we had another talk. We discussed that seeing other partners wasn't safe, and for the time being, and the safety of our daughter, we should stop doing so. Our second daughter was born 3 days ago. There were some complications, and I realized I didn't just love my wife, I was in love with her. I have a perfect wife, a perfect little white picket fence life, and 2 beautiful daughters. I am a gay man, and I am in love with my wife. I still haven't told anyone else except my wife about this double life I am living, and I am perfectly content and fine with that. Had sex with my dead twin brother's girlfriend to help cope with his loss. My twin sewer slide was one of the most impactful parts of my life. Being only 14 at the time, it was confusing, heartbreaking, and completely changed my perspective on life. I had never experienced the death of a loved one, so my first death being my brother was extremely tough for me. My parents became increasingly concerned about me and my mental health, so she always filled our flat with people close to my brother to make me feel supported. One of these people was my brother's girlfriend. She lived nearby and had been dating my brother for about a year, so I saw her a decent amount, but in the months after his death she came over almost every day for supper. Like me, she took his death pretty hard. We would comfort each other by talking about our favorite things to do with him, listen to his favorite songs, and would do anything to make it feel like he's still here with us. One night, while doing this exact routine we had for months, we started talking about their relationship. Being young and innocent, I barely understood the concept of a relationship, so when she told me they were sexually active, I was stunned. I started bombarding her with questions, all of which she answered with little detail. After finding this out though, it was hard for me to live knowing there was a side of my brother I never got to see and only she got to see. Over the next year or so, she became more willing to talk about the details that I was dying to know. The more time went on, the more details I got, and the closer me and her became. It being a few years after his death now, she was an open book with me. We discussed her struggles with dating after bro's death and how it's hard for her to even imagine herself being with someone else after what she had been through. One night in late winter we had come home from an outdoor concert. It was the type of cold where you could feel it in your bones. I ran to my room to grab blankets and proceeded to cover ourselves on the couch. She cuddled up towards me as we watched some TV and attempted to warm ourselves up by my tiny electric fireplace. It felt so natural that I had barely even noticed that what we were doing was probably abnormal. As usual, we start discussing her relationship issues and she mentions how cuddling on me felt like she was with him again. She started crying, which made me start to tear up. I embrace her more as she talks about how much she misses his touch. I would also like to note that throughout all this, I did not have sensual feelings towards her whatsoever other than a fleeting thought here and there. At this point though, things started to get somewhat heated, despite me not realizing it at first. She slides her hands under my sweater to embrace me tighter and simply asks, "Can I?" At this point I realized what she's starting to imply and we started kissing. The more we did it, the more passionate it became. We had sex that night and it was the most natural good feeling thing I've ever experienced. This evolved into a full-on relationship that was cut short by me having to leave for uni. However, it seemed that whatever she got from our short-lived relationship helped her get over my brother, as she was in a relationship shortly after I left. She also seemed to be much happier from the few conversations we've had since. Our relationship also helped me cope with his death in a weird way since she was there for me throughout my entire grieving process. It felt like closing a chapter on a tough time in my life. Not sure how immoral it was, but in the end it was largely beneficial to both of us. She cheated on me, so I had a threesome with her former ex-boyfriend and the guy she cheated on me with. To clear up any confusion that might come up, you have to know that I am a bisexual man. I love sharing this story because I'm still proud of it. A few years ago my ex-girlfriend cheated on me with another guy. She then had the audacity to tell me that if I was a grown-up that I could deal with it and that she hopes we can still be friends, but she lost any feelings for me and is fully in love with this new guy now. If she hadn't said that, I probably wouldn't have made this plan. But now I had to teach her a valuable lesson. I was in a depressed state for a long time and couldn't bring myself to delete her number. And she thought I was her friend now. She started to send me pictures of her and her new boyfriend with laughing emojis. She didn't even care about how much she had hurt me. And then one day while I went through Tinder I found someone who was quite familiar. Her new boyfriend. Of course I wouldn't tell her that her new boyfriend is on Tinder. In fact I matched with him, which was quite surprising because I thought he was straight and we started a conversation. He didn't know who I was. She never told him she was in a relationship while she was flirting with him. But this was perfect. We had longer conversations and he told me more and more about him. Over the weeks we learned more and more about each other and now I had a plan. I suggested that we could meet each other at a bar. He agreed. Keep in mind he was still in a relationship with my ex-girlfriend at that time. When we met we had a great time, and one date became many dates. It took me few months but then I got him to the point where he developed feelings for me and I was his affair. What he didn't know is that I got in contact with my girlfriend's former ex-boyfriend as well. He broke up with her because he came out as gay. I was in contact with both guys. The ex-boyfriend and I got along very well. In fact I made him a close friend of mine. In our conversations with my new boyfriend we talked about sensual desires and he me told that he always wanted to have a threesome, so I suggested one with the gay ex-boyfriend. I knew that he was his type because we kind of look alike and he had feelings for me, so I asked the gay ex-boyfriend if he wanted to become the third one, and to my surprise he said yes. I'm honestly still surprised how all of that worked out without her noticing, but it did, and then the day came where I decided to go nuclear. The two guys came to my apartment, and I lead them to the bedroom and they started talking to each other. While they talked I took a selfie from a safe distance, close enough so that she could see their faces but far enough that they wouldn't notice. Then the action started. Of course I won't go into any detail, but damn I enjoyed it more than anything in the world. A few days after this I told him that now that I granted him the wish of a threesome I wanted something in return. I told him that I don't want to be in an affair any longer and told him that he should either break up with her or I will break up with him. I knew it was hardcore manipulative, but I had a plan and I had full control over him. He actually broke up with her and threw her out. I even got him to move out of his apartment to move in with me, meaning that she lost both her home and her boyfriend. But I wasn't done yet. Because after that she texted me with crying emojis that her boyfriend dumped her and that she regrets leaving me. I then said, "Your boyfriend? Are you talking about this guy?" And I sent her the selfie I took. She called and texted me several times but I ignored her. My plan was almost successful. There were only 3 things left that I still had to do. The first was that I told her mother, who hates infidelity more than anything because her father cheated on her mother with another woman. Her mother was angry but thanked me for telling her. From what I've heard is that her mother cut ties with her, but I admit that I don't know if that actually happened, and I don't think that it happened, but it would be funny if it was true. The second thing I did was dumping him because unfortunately for him he was a cheater too and I hate infidelity. The last thing I did was going out with the gay ex-boyfriend, and after a few dates we got together and we are still a couple. In the end I destroyed both her and the guy she cheated on me with and couldn't be more proud of myself. My wife is not the woman I used to know. She let the fame get to her. I met my wife when I was 15 in high school, she was 17. That latter part of my teenage years was probably the hardest of my life, since in half a year I lost my mother. Never knew my dad, so she was the only thing I could consider family. At that time, me and my wife were only friends, but she was there for me, and grieved with me. I think I started developing feelings for her during that time. We started dating when I was 17, and we got married 7 years later. For context, my wife was very frugal and unmaterialistic. She never cared about clothes, makeup, brands, cars, always spending money on thrift shops or during sales on whatever she liked. I remember trying to impress her with my 370Z just for her to react with, "What car is this? A Corolla?" So yeah. I think you get the point. But that's what I liked about her the most. And also, she was the most caring person I ever knew. In our family, she's the successful one, always working in big corporations. Regarding myself, I always worked as a community first responder for my local hospital. The salary wasn't high, but I loved my job, helping people as much as I could. Fast forward, 2 years ago she received an offer from an important company for an executive position, offering 4 times her salary. That wasn't even bad to begin with, but we would have to move to a different city. At first, I was doubtful, since that would mean losing my job, which meant I could not contribute financially to our family for an indefinite time period, but she said that she could sustain the family effortlessly with this new job, and with that new extra time that I had I could look after the house and groceries until I found a new job. Since she was so enthusiastic, I accepted. I was happy to support my wife's career. Well, the best way I can put it is that my wife underwent a crazy transformation. She started caring more and more about luxury brands, jewels, cars, etc. I don't think you can quite imagine my disbelief seeing her coming back home with a Versace bag after seeing her for years wearing $10 coats from our local thrift shop. She also started hanging out with her new female coworkers a lot. My wife isn't very extroverted or very social, so that was quite the shock, but I was very happy for her. I thought that she finally found her dimension after years of struggling. But that happiness started fading after she started coming home way later every day. And later. And later. Until it was a miracle to be able to talk to her for 10 minutes a day. I thought it was because she was busy with work, since being an executive means lots of work, until she started posting lots of photos of her with her coworkers drinking, going shopping and stuff. The fun part is, she never finds time to reply to my text, but she always has a minute to post photos. And when she replies, she says that she's working. She also literally stops saying things to me altogether. Have you ever experienced your wife or husband going to work with an Audi A3 and then coming back home with a Porsche Macan GTS? Well, I did, and let me tell you, it's no fun. I confronted her on if it was a business-issued car, which it isn't, then on why she spent so much money on a car when she didn't care not even a little about cars. Her passive-aggressive response was that it's her money and that she is entitled to do as she pleases. Or have you experienced not seeing your wife or husband coming back home for a night and not replying to text just to receive a call the following afternoon saying that she forgot to tell me that she left for a business trip? Well, I hope you haven't. But the worst is when she invited me for lunch with her coworkers. I was very happy because that was the first time we were doing something together in months, and I thought that what I've experienced before was only a phase and that it was all over. My wife left first because she had work to do, so I dressed up nicely and left 2 hours after to the scheduled restaurant. For context, I sold years before my 370Z because I didn't need a sports car anymore, so my daily driver is a very frugal Renault Clio. I like it, and since I don't need that much, I don't have reasons to upgrade to a pricier model or brand. Well, I get to the restaurant, park my car in front of it, get inside just to see my wife staring at me horror-stricken. She gets up from the table and takes me outside of the restaurant, then proceeds to literally insult me for parking my Clio in front of the restaurant and in front of her table, saying that I embarrassed her and that I should have parked it somewhere hidden. I was completely at a loss for words. I asked her why, and she said that it was a cheap, non-luxury car, not representative of her lifestyle. She then gets back inside the restaurant, warning me not to embarrass her like this again. I attended the rest of the lunch in shock. That day I realized that girl I had at my side wasn't my wife. It wasn't the girl I married anymore. My wife is now out of the house, celebrating a great year for the company, and I'm here at home writing this with the divorce papers in front of me. I don't think I can handle this situation anymore. I tried lots and lots of time to talk to her, to tell her how I feel, to tell her that she changed, that she's not the same woman I knew. But she just doesn't listen. She always says that she has no time and that she needs to work, or she tries to minimize the situation saying that it's not true and that she never changed. She wanted kids, and now she doesn't want them anymore, saying that they would rob her time from her career. She wanted to travel, but now she doesn't want to do it, for the same reason. Is she really the same woman I married? But still, I can't bring myself to talk about divorce with her, most likely because I hope that somewhere hidden inside of her there's still the woman I loved and still love. Even if it doesn't seem like the case.